Welcome. My name is Terry Drew Karanen. This is the second class in a four-part series discussing the science of mind as developed by Reverend Dr. Ernest Holmes. This information was taken from the introduction of Holmes' textbook, and it's called The Way It Works. In the first class, we learned that religious science is the scientific approach to religion and a religious reverence in scientific law. It is a spiritual philosophy which deals with the unity of all life and which proclaims that God power exists at the center of every person. We also learn that the science of mind is taught by religious science. It is the science of laws of thought as they pertain to our relationship to the universal creative mind, or God, or force, or higher power, and to health, happiness, and success. Science of mind is not a special revelation. Rather, it is a compilation of many revelations. Holmes himself said he never had an original thought. Religious science accepts the good wherever we find it, and then we make it our own to the best of our understanding. In the book, The Anatomy of a Healing Prayer, Holmes is quoted as saying, "The only reason medically or in any of the therapeutic sciences, osteopathy or chiropractic, is not to put something there that wasn't there, but to reveal something that was there and make the mechanics so that what there was may flow. That is all anyone can do." This shows how he not only recognized that the solution to our problems can occur in many different ways, but encouraged us to be open to various channels for that manifestation. Good is universal, as much good as we as individuals can make use of it to the extent of our understanding of and usage of the science of mind and spirit. Last week, we discussed the nature of God as being universal energy, mind, intelligence, spirit, and synonymous with life. This is the essence of our whole teaching. None of our practices can be effective without the firm belief in God, or whatever you call that higher power or science, as all there is. This is the meaning of the mystical saying of the Apostle Paul in Acts 17:28, "In him we live and move and have our being." This also means that we are made from this thing, this essence. This is the very nature, or this is a very different concept from the God of traditional religion, a God out there who punishes, blesses, or judges. We see God as a consciousness of unity. In the 1950s in Los Angeles, the Founders Church of Religious Science sponsored a group of licensed practitioners of religious science, people who had been professionally trained in performing the art and science of spiritual mind treatment on behalf of others. Holmes gave a private talk to their group on May 23, 1955, on the subject of unity. He had an adamant conviction of unity. In one part of the textbook, he writes, "One, one, one," with the third one capitalized and in italics, as if trying desperately to drive home his point of unity in a culture so intent on separation. Science of mind teaches that what is known at one point is known at all points. But from time to time, even the best religious scientists slip into phrases or affirmations that, when taken apart, do not reflect the unity we teach. Here are a few examples he gave to the practitioner group of pseudo-unity in our relationship to God. "I am one with God." That statement implies separation, as if we had to glue ourselves back to God. Positive and negative thinking. This implies two kinds of creative thought, but according to this teaching, there is only one power of thought. I have to overcome this condition. This implies the condition actually has power, and we are therefore making it our God. This exemplifies the challenge in which we must be aware of with language and languaging and learning, applying and teaching this philosophy. We are not speaking a language that supports unity, but rather English is inherently a language of separation and sexism. Most other languages, with the exception of some of the indigenous languages, are no different. Spiritual mind treatment or scientific affirmative prayer must have a basis of unity. If, for example, let's say the practitioner is asked to treat with regard to a court case, they can see no plaintiff, no defendant, no judge, no jury. We are dealing with one mind and one spirit, and nothing can lie to it. Therefore, only divine right action can come to the situation. The difficulty we face in dealing with our day-to-day challenges is that we can easily become the defendant the prosecuting attorney, the jury, and the judge, before we ever think of turning it over to God through prayer or treatment. The same principle which makes us sick can make us better. There are not two separate principles, one of sickness and one of health. There is one principle used two different ways. One produces what we want, the other way produces what we don't want. The possibility of healing, whatever that means to you, exists in the consciousness of each of us. There will come within the vision or desire everything we require to fulfill that vision or desire. But we must open to that. We must have the faith in the thing unseen, as Holmes puts it. Jesus summed up his whole philosophy and the whole philosophy of the science of mind when he said, "It is done unto you as you believe." The great teacher looked so deeply into nature that she revealed her fundamental simplicity to him. The as and the believe in "it is done unto you as you believe" symbolizes heaven and hell. And so we suffer, not because suffering is imposed upon us or required for our growth, but because we are ignorant of our true nature. Now, ignorance is not the same as stupidity. My grandma Esther had a saying she used to always use when she talked about the difference between the two. I always assumed she was kidding. Sometimes with Grandma Esther, there was a moment of doubt when one was never quite sure. But she used to say the difference between ignorance and being stupid was that you could learn an ignorant person, but you can't do nothing with a stupid person but take him out behind the barn and shoot him. That should give you an idea of the kind of upbringing I had. On another note, I'm almost totally ignorant of the concept of nuclear fusion, let alone being able to explain it to you. But that doesn't make me stupid. If I chose to, I could learn. I seriously doubt that I will ever will because I don't have any real desire to know or need to know, but I could learn if I truly chose to study it. However, I can be described as ignorant of that process. It doesn't make me less of a valuable person. It's just something that I do not currently understand, nor do I need to learn at this point in my life. However, lack of that knowledge doesn't stop me from using the electricity produced by a nuclear power plant. Since religious scientists believe strongly in the power of choice and volition, I am often asked why do bad things happen to nice people? Or why are people starving to death when there's plenty to eat on our planet? The statement, ignorant of our true nature, is the key to answering these questions, which seem to have no answer. It is not the will of God for people to suffer. God doesn't take the lives of little children, or adults for that matter, because it needs another angel in heaven. Rough times can occur in our lives because we are ignorant of our true nature and oblivious of how to use the tools at our disposal to change the conditions. In most cases, we have completely given up any hope of change or of a healing, and that is deadly. Occasionally, and more often now in our time than ever before, someone wakes up and wakes up the world in the process. Over the centuries, we've had Moses, Lao Tse, Jesus of Nazareth, Joan of Arc, Ernest Holmes, Rosa Parks, John F. Kennedy, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to name just a few. It's not a pretty picture, is it? Half of those people were murdered for their beliefs. We learn very quickly on a subconscious level, if not a conscious one, that good leaders get killed. Be quiet, don't rock the boat. If you're strong-willed and don't go along with the crowd, someone will knock you down. At least that's what we believe. We must believe in our own individualized use of this universal power. Just as Dr. King believed he could make a difference, we must believe we can make a difference, that conditions in our lives which are undesirable can be changed, or at least to see conditions in a different way. We cannot recognize what this power is, while at the very same time acting that it doesn't have the same ability. We cannot think that it works sometimes, but not other times, or for some and not for others. That is why the Apostle Paul told the Hebrew Christians of the first century that some did not enter into the faith because of their unbelief. We may enter in because of our belief, but we cannot enter while there is unbelief. This is what Scripture refers to as a house divided against itself. We are pushing and pulling at the same time and accomplishing nothing. It's time to move out of the doorway and into the house. Our belief sets the limit to our demonstrations of a principle which of itself is without limit. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it is not a willingness of its willingness, or question of its willingness, rather, God's willingness, if you will, nor its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. That statement sure is different from the old must be the will of God excuse, isn't it? Holmes tells us in the textbook that the will of God is always toward that which expresses life and happiness. You are a thinking, willing, knowing, and conscious center of life. You are surrounded by, immersed in, and there is flowing through you a creative something, call it what you want. The sum total of all your thoughts, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law that causes it to react to you according to the sum total of that belief. It behooves us, therefore, to do all we can do to see that our thought processes are in line with the life we desire to have. Ignorance of the law excuses no one from its effects. It therefore stands to reason then we ought to learn the law, learn to believe of and in it, and approach it directly, head on, and specifically. That's why I taught science of mind classes for so many years. It's in those classes we learn to look deeply into the issues of our lives and how to better use principles to assist us in making changes for the better. Some people only pray for God's will, not praying or treating for specifics. Holmes said, I believe in treating for what we have need of. So it is just fine to treat for the abundance and prosperity in your life. But it's also okay to treat for your rent money, or the money for a trip this year, or for that special something you want. You don't even have to have a reason. You can just want to have it. The woman called the teacher of teachers in the New Thought movement, Emma Curtis Hopkins, once said, there's good out there and I ought to have it. There is good all around you, but also in and of you. Decide this week what you want your life to look like. See it clearly. Believe that it is possible and release it into universal intelligence, and then let God show off in your life by creating through you a life worth living that is better than anything you've experienced up until now. I hope you'll join me again next week when we continue our discussion with our third part, which is called What It Does. There are countless ways you could have spent the last few minutes of your day. You decided to listen to this video. I'm honored that you chose to spend it with me. Until next time, all the best to you, always.